Welcome to Our Nation Today. I'm K.R. Davidson. Thanks for joining us as we look at the stories behind the headlines. The federal government is looking at bringing in legislation that would help ensure a federal election could be safely held in a pandemic. However, the bill is stalled in the House of Commons, and it is unlikely that it will get passed before Parliament breaks for the summer. The Minister for Intergovernmental Affairs is blaming the official opposition for the delay. Dominic LeBlanc says the Tories are perhaps blocking the bill because they don't want to go into an election this summer or fall. The Conservative House leader, however, says the Liberals have not put the bill on the agenda enough, nor have they allocated enough time to debate since it was introduced 5 months ago. We will now examine the story in greater detail with Nathaniel Duick, senior researcher, writer, and analyst at the News Forum, and the gentleman with the longest title at the News Forum. Is that right? Okay. So let's take a look at it. What's just the base substance of this bill in the first place to be able to allow for a safer election for Canadians?
I think you hit the nail on the head right there. It's basically just a bill to allow the country to hold an election in the middle of a pandemic. It would allow or empower Elections Canada to make the appropriate adjustments. It would do a few various other things as well. It would extend voting days.
Three voting days.
Exactly, as opposed to just
some more options for mail-in voting.
Advanced voting is extended as well a bit. So there's just measures in place to ensure that the bill, or that Canadians can get to the polls.
So is this a good sign for Canadians that we're actually getting politics as normal coming back? We're getting the normal jockey?
Well, you know what? The normal jockeying for position, the government saying the opposition is being obstructionist, the opposition saying the government's not managing the House affairs well enough, and then you have the third party, the NDP, saying, look, the other parties need to get along better and do better, and generally
it's sort of refreshing.
It is in some ways in the middle of a pandemic, it's nice to go back to a bit of this.
Okay, so let's take a look at the substance of the issue here, because Bill C-10's introduced, it's being delayed. I think the Conservatives are filibustering this, but I think that if it goes to committee anyways, the Liberals are filibustering in that committee.
That's right.
Right. So
that's right.
So jockeying's happening on both sides.
There's a lot of committee. The games, the backroom games in the committee are ongoing, and so I think there's been, at any rate, the government hasn't advanced that much debate time in the House on this issue.
So. Yeah, and can we state that the Liberals are in a place where they really want this bill to go forward? When we're taking a look at the polls, the budget really didn't move anything, that they're within striking territory of the majority, but they're not exactly where they want. But of course, the Conservatives and the NDP aren't where they want to be either.
Well, definitely not. I mean, we were looking at a few polling numbers a little earlier, and basically the only people who have gone up are the NDP, and that seems to be gains off of both gains off of the Liberals and Conservatives. It seems to be anyway at this point. So Conservatives are down, Liberals are down. Of course, it's a question of where you're up, not just where you are in the polls, right?
Sure, and you're taking a look at within striking territory in Ontario for the Liberals.
Definitely a strong lead in Ontario.
Yeah.
Prairies and Alberta typically. You know
where it's going.
You know where it's
BC's
going.
Across the board.
To me, I wouldn't ever guess what BC is going to do.
I love looking at the polling numbers. It's like you're trying to see, like, what is the image I'm trying to discern psychologically from those polling dots. So
it's fun.
But let's take a look at the Conservatives here, because I think they're trying to introduce Aaron O'Toole as the new leader to the electorate,
right.
But they're having a bit of a problem with their own support base at the same time.
A little bit down. At the same time, the fundraising numbers just came in. Conservatives had a record Q1. So I think it was almost $8.5 million. Liberals raising just over 3.5. So they're saying they've been focusing on the pandemic, not on fundraising. The other parties are focusing on an election. But at any rate, it's seeming to be a bit of an issue there.
And what's also interesting is the amount of undecided voters in Quebec.
Well, 33%, right, or something like that?
Yeah, which I think is a place for a lot of the parties to take a look and see what ground. The Liberals have some traditional strength there right now, so let's see how that looks. So it's all about the timing. Pierre Trudeau said the essential ingredient of politics is timing, and it appears that this tidbit of wisdom may have been mentioned in the earshot of his son. The question is simply, when do the Liberals think it is best to call an election? While the Liberals were hoping to move the needle with the most recent budget and reach into majority territory, it appears that they remain slightly out of reach. The Conservatives, however, appear to be fighting on two fronts. One, to introduce Aaron O'Toole to the broader electorate, and the second, to ensure their traditional base does not wane. In either event, we are sure to have more on this story in the weeks ahead. Stay with us. After these messages, we'll be looking at the looming deadline on Pipeline 5. Welcome back to Our Nation Today. Most Canadians are aware of intense political fights over the implementation of energy pipelines in our country. We are not, however, accustomed to conflicts over existing pipelines. This will likely change as residents of Ontario and Quebec may soon be experiencing higher prices at the pumps due to a decision by the Governor of Michigan to shut down an existing pipeline that services, among other things, Canadian provinces. Governor Gretchen Whitmer ordered Enbridge to close its Line 5 pipeline by May 12th. The pipeline carries oil and natural gas from Western Canada into Eastern Canada, crossing the Great Lakes through Michigan. The governor ordered the closure of the lines in November. Now, with the deadline approaching, Canadian officials are scrambling to keep the line open. Now, we get to examine this here with Nathaniel. So, this has been a story that's been covered at the network and has been in the news for quite a bit, but we're fast approaching the deadline. Can you give the viewers just a bit of the background? What's the premise of the governor shutting down this line, and then what is the, I guess, some of the counterposition from Enbridge and otherwise?
Yeah. I mean, it seems as though we're all still slightly taken aback by this. However, this was an election promise she made, so we can't necessarily be that surprised that the governor of Michigan is following through on it on that front. Basically, what she's doing is she is canceling the easement for the pipeline, which runs from Superior all the way over into Sarnia.
So basically, we're taking crude that's coming from Alberta.
Right. It runs through Canada,
it
connects
down
into
into
Superior
the refineries in the States, and then gets piped back up here for things like Pearson Airport's probably one of the big consumers.
Exactly, and it is about 45, like over half of Ontario's crude needs are met through this pipeline. 66% of Quebec's. So if this is shut down, it will have an impact.
So the governor said that here we're going to shut it down. It's based on environmental promises, et cetera. Are there substantive concerns with the pipeline in that regard, or what is the premise in that?
I mean, she's listing, like you said, environmental concerns and as well. There's concerns that resulted after a ship's anchor was dragged across one of the pipelines. Nothing happened, but there was concern that could be leading to something happening down the road. That being said, the company is fulfilling all of its regulatory requirements.
Well, I actually thought that they talked about encasements.
And that's what's going on right now. They're working their way through the regulatory process to further protect it with a concrete tunnel.
And I don't think that there's been incident since 1953.
No.
Okay, so what's the ramifications? If Pipeline 5 shut down, how does Ontario, Quebec, and this isn't just Ontario and Quebec, we're dealing, Ohio is taking issue with this as well.
Right. The surrounding states are also affected by this. Not to mention that a lot of Michigan's propane needs are met through this pipeline.
I think, but I see somewhere up to 60 some odd percent in Quebec of the propane needs, which that's a huge
crude needs. Yeah, exactly.
And so, but when we take a look at it, if this is shut down in the name of protecting the environment, are we not going to see that we're going to have to ship this energy or crude oil in some other means?
This is the thing. This isn't a new pipeline. This is an already existing pipeline.
Correct.
Therefore, everything that is being used, we're using all of it, right?
Correct.
So this isn't going to change the supply. If it's shut down, it'll cut the supply. This supply needs to be met in order to, especially during winter, which, so until that's met, we're going to have issues. And I think that needs, this is why the Natural Resources Minister, Seamus O'Regan, says he's watching this issue like a hawk, right? So
watching something and actually seeing a shift. So I think, from my understanding, the governor actually doesn't have the ability to shut it down per se.
And that's the legal debate. There's a 1977 treaty that actually then first-term Senator Joe Biden signed. Yeah. But anyway, that would say that no one can really interfere with this. However, there's another clause that says appropriate government authorities can rule on it. So it's a bit of a back and forth on that front.
And Joe Comartin's the Counsel General in Michigan right now, and he's stating, he's thinking that a federal court judge is going to actually maybe keep this alive or whatever the case may be. So,
but
and then
is that enough? Is that enough?
Another thing. So often when one side advances a cause, they rely on a factual base to stand on to be able to withstand scrutiny. Governor Whitmer's order to shut down Pipeline 5 is based on the premise that the pipeline is both unsafe and, in a broader sense, negatively affecting the environment. While these reasons are compelling, they do not appear to accord with the reality that Pipeline 5 is in full compliance with all laws, has been safely operated since 1953, and shutting down the pipeline will have a significant environmental effect that will cause alternative transport of fuel to affect the environment in a negative way. In politics, there needs to be an intersection with reality, and it appears that unfortunately in this case, neither of the two shall meet. Stay with us. When we come back, we will look at some big names that are backing the rise of cryptocurrency. By this point, the rise of cryptocurrency is something familiar to most Canadians. While Bitcoin may be the most well-known cryptocurrency, there are other digital currencies gaining both prominence and value. Dogecoin, Ethereum, and Cardano are all becoming part of the public conversation, and it is not only their names that are gaining prominence. The ranks of public personas investing in cryptocurrencies is also growing, with tech leaders like Elon Musk, celebrities like Paris Hilton, and sports stars like Floyd Mayweather all weighing in. But what exactly are cryptocurrencies, and can this current trend last? Or is it just a bubble that will eventually burst and leave many with broken dreams and empty wallets? All right, Nathaniel, let's take a look at this. I think everybody's trying to understand, like, what is cryptocurrency in the first place? Is it something great to invest in or not? Or is this just mere speculation?
Right. So cryptocurrency, I actually was introduced, I knew about Bitcoin before I knew about cryptocurrency.
Yeah, what are your current holdings of cryptocurrency? I think you should be disclosing them.
No disclosure to report. Yeah. Should have some, but I don't. No, all that to say, it's a digital currency, a virtual currency. It's not backed by a central authority like a normal monetary currency would be. It's instead based on decentralized networks that are called, blockchain.
Blockchain
technology.
So blockchain's pretty fascinating in and of itself because it can basically track information that's stored, and you can't change it afterwards. And if you do change it, it's like a fingerprint, and it connects to the next one. So you've always got this tracing. So a fantastic way to be able to deal with issues like currency and otherwise. So the technology is very sound, but is the rise of the cryptocurrency sound? We're seeing like Ethereum's starting to give Bitcoin a bit of a wrestle for top dog.
Bitcoin's the top dog, but Ethereum, you've got Cardano, which has made some recent ones, and then of course what started out, what seems to be
last night
again, but again, the joke one, which is Dogecoin, apparently not a joke in terms of its return here. So some significant rises on this front. So basically, there's a lot of public buy-in, I would say, in terms of there's a lot of interest in this. I think you have it's a bit of the zeitgeist of our times too.
Are you saying it's the AOL of the 2000s?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. But what I do think is this is something that we have seen grow. There's a lot more people spending time at home. This is something new. It's exciting. It's tech-based.
How do you value it? That's what I want to know. How do you value it?
Well, apparently,
I know you're not going to be able to give me an answer.
I can't, no, because it's all done individually, right?
Well, and there's some arguments, and we're seeing some big backers coming into the game now. So it's not. So
there's some clout behind it now, some reputation,
and financial clout to boot. So and you have Bitcoin, which only has 21 million coins that are issued. So you have this limited quantity. So you've got this demand side in play,
which is, if you look at it, a similar thing to the way fiat currency is allocated, right?
Well, similar, but again, lacking
supply-demand issues, along with a general trust in the authority of the country, right? That's fiat currency.
No. Wait a second. There's two parts to fiat currency. There's the supply and demand, but there's also the value component. Where does the value derive from?
At this point, you're seeing the value derived from investors all around the world putting their money in and saying, I have faith and trust that this will work, which is the same thing that we do
we've got Elon Musk,
in governments.
We've got Elon Musk. Well, Paris Hilton's weighed in on this, so this is.
But all of this is to say, the more and more people who have credibility that buy into this system, the more and more other people will, and it becomes its own economic ecosystem.
If we take a look at Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, other big names, they're saying, man, this is just speculation.
Right.
And so, but are people not just hurt by speculation? Do we see people are just trying to get this greater return than what they might already get, and then they're the victims?
But I mean, our whole system is largely, in many ways, dependent on this speculation. I mean, we're not on the gold standard anymore,
it's
right?
Based on confidence of a multiple, right? I think that's different than speculation.
Well, it's based on
a little bit of gold fever, I think.
Maybe a gold fever, but you know.
Warren Buffett has previously commented that cryptocurrency is rat poison squared. It is interesting to note the Oracle of Omaha's words as he refers to the exponential danger of cryptocurrency. There can be no doubt that blockchain technology has enormous potential in a myriad of areas, and one of the digital currencies may very well serve as the next global currency. However, without being able to ascertain underlying value, the rise or fall of any currency is merely speculation, and we may be soon seeing a repeat of something akin to valuing internet startups at the turn of the millennium by the quantity of clicks they receive. Entering into speculative markets is generally a recipe for more sophisticated people to take advantage of those with less knowledge. And in the volatile world of cryptocurrency, there will be big winners and big losers. Stay with us. When we come back, we will look at Donald Trump's continued ban from Facebook. Welcome back to Our Nation Today. Facebook's quasi-independent oversight board has upheld a ban on former U.S. President Donald Trump's Facebook accounts. However, the board has told Facebook it must specify how long the ban will last, saying that an indefinite ban is unreasonable. Facebook has 6 months to comply with this. Some say this only kicks the decision down the road and more government oversight of social media is required. Others are worried about the implications to free speech for politicians. Donald Trump was banned ever since the January 6th U.S. Capitol riots. Let's take a look at this. So this is a serious issue. Obviously, we saw loss of life in the Capitol riots and a lot of people, and we have the impeachment that came out seeming to blame Donald Trump on it. But we're fast forwarding here. He was banned from Facebook. There's a new oversight body that Mark Zuckerberg put in place so that he isn't ultimately making the decision. Give us a bit of a background on this decision that was recently made.
Yeah, and I think firstly, both you and I can just agree, any violence against elected officials or a democratic process is not acceptable.
Sure.
What we are looking at is the oversight committee deciding that, the Facebook ban it was correct to be put in place. However, they did make a caveat saying, look, it can't be indeterminate. You have to put a time limit on it, Facebook. So it's given Facebook 6 months to make that decision.
So let's talk about this oversight body, because this is really the first major decision that they've made. I think that they've issued 6 or 7 other decisions. Mm-hmm. Most of them have gone against what the company has done. I think Mark Zuckerberg has been criticized in the past for wielding this ultimate power on who can do what on Facebook. And he's handed this off, and I think it's politically expedient because I think regulators were looking to come into that territory. So what is this board comprised of? What are they doing? What's their task? How do they fund it?
Well, I think to say that this is a board of some very talented people. We've got a former prime minister of Denmark. We've got some serious legal scholars from the U.S. A wide range of people
all over the world.
Exactly, it's not just the United States, right? So, and I think what they did was there was a minority on the board. So all that to say, I think the board chose to deal with the January 6th insurrection events exclusively, right? Yeah. So they said there were some members of the board. There was
some thought that they might widen the scope. And
right, dealing with like general comments made in the past. But they said, no. This is focused on these events. Did this lead to violence, right? Did his comments lead to violence? The board decided yes, right?
Okay, and basically they're at the same time they're saying that a ban can't be indefinite. Of course, we understand in the U.S. slightly different than what we have here in Canada. They have their First Amendment rights. We're protected under Section 2B for freedom of expression. So But I think that this is really just something where Mark Zuckerberg knew that he needed to remove himself from being the arbiter of these sorts of decisions. So I actually think it's a wise move. It would be interesting to see if Twitter and YouTube would hop on board on something like this, because when we're taking a look at it, we actually see that Canada has actually been encroaching in this area. We've got Bill C-10.
I know you mentioned, the C-10. I was just about to bring it up. I know you were looking into that earlier.
Yeah.
Do you have any? What is your main takeaway? I know there's been a lot that's been going on with that.
Yeah, Minister. Yeah, Bill C-10 is interesting. The Canadian government is looking to actually regulate social media and bring them under the banner of CRTC so that they would be covered from a review of content based on the same as what television stations and other broadcasters are.
The minister said this is not going to affect social media. Is that?
Well, they said that, but then when it's gone to committee, they removed the exclusion that would allow for that. So the issue is that social media, the content is produced by the user, and so so they had an exclusion so that would be carved out so that content wouldn't be there, but that was removed in committee. So basically we're taking a look at the government regulating content of users.
Lots of experts on media and free speech are speaking out against this.
I think the Globe editorial board took a hit at this, but rightfully so. While pressures have been on Mark Zuckerberg for some time to give up his stranglehold grip on Facebook, the establishment of the Oversight Board was a wise decision. And not only is this a politically expedient move for Facebook, it provides a largely independent oversight body to govern restrictions on content for social media. Frederick Douglass stated that suppressing free speech is a double wrong. It violates the rights of the hearer as well as those of the speaker. Other social media platforms like Twitter and YouTube should follow suit to ensure that bills like the proposed Bill C-10 do not allow governments to become the arbiters of what can and cannot be said. Otherwise, Canadians will fall prey to according speech to political ideology. I'm K.R. Davidson. Thanks for watching Our Nation Today.